Welcome to the Morning Scoop. It is Tuesday, August 16th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm your host, Joe Draime, and I'm joined today by Ohio State All-American Kirk Barton. Kirk, how are you today?
Good. How are you, brother? Excited for this show.
Yep, thrilled. So, wanted to get your perspective because yours is kind of unique. You have played and coached at Ohio State at a high level. You've been through training camp both as a player and as a coach, and we're looking to hear what you have to say about camp. So, tell me about your experiences from fall camp as a player. I want to hear, what it was like to room with all the guys, be at the team hotel, and, just be all about football for, 15 hours a day.
Well, I think I'm going to take you through like what it's like in camp right now when they've got a week left in the hotel and they just finished the big scrimmage of the fall on Saturday. So on Saturday, Ohio State had a closed scrimmage inside the Horseshoe. A very competitive scrimmage. The defense looked very good. We had, numerous offensive players that were held, like Jackson Smith and Jigba was kind of on a pitch count. Some of the, Trey Henderson, some of those guys weren't getting as much work, but there were some guys that really stood out. Cade Stover stood out. He's a captain, probably the toughest guy on the team. And some of these guys, they know that Saturday is generally when they name the captains, so there's a little bit of anxiety that day, just because you want to have a good scrimmage, you want to play well, and usually the coaches tabulate up the votes on Friday night and they announce them on Saturday. And I think that the coaches generally pick the captains. I know that there's a popular vote, but if too many guys vote for the wrong guy, he's not going to ever be a captain due to the coach's discretion. So I think these guys are excited because it's Monday. They're through Monday's practice. The benefit to one-a-days is they practice in the morning, and it's like the hard part of the day is done by 10:30, and then it's just kind of meetings and workouts and a nightly walkthrough. But they're all looking forward to Saturday when they get to move out of the hotel. They get 12 hours, they get like 18 hours off. They get done, they get to go home, go back to their apartments, go out for the night, have dinner, show back up to the building probably at noon on Sunday, and get ready for Notre Dame. So I've just been in the situation with these guys. They're counting on, they've got 4 days left in the scrimmage on Saturday, and then it's go time for Notre Dame.
Yeah, and as we get further and further along to the season, from your experience, when do you usually start to transition into game week? After camp, all the nitty-gritty of camp is over, when do you really start that preparation for that first game?
Well, I think that when you're playing someone like Notre Dame week one, they probably already have started it. I mean, it really depends on the circumstance and who you open with. In years where we opened up with a MAC school, it'd be you kind of just keep going training camp all the way up to the game, because you could basically roll the helmets out and beat most of our normal opening opponents. But Notre Dame is not that. That's a team that we actually have to prep for, and they'll be formidable. I mean, I still obviously anticipate we'll win. We're double-digit favorites, but I think when you have Notre Dame, you're going to have to tamper down a little bit. I know people hate to hear that, but you got to make sure these guys are healthy for the games, because you have some positions like cornerback that are really thin right now. Some guys have some nagging injuries, and you're one injury away from really being up the creek when it comes to how thin you are at corner. So you got to really kind of take care of these guys and monitor them. I mean, you still got to push them and get them their work, but when you start getting hammered at some positions and they're snake bit, you got to make sure you get. The biggest thing about football is you got to get these guys to the game. You can beat the tar out of them and toughen them up, but there's a fine line between that and making sure these guys are healthy enough to play on a game day Saturday.
Right, so you would definitely probably say that the name of the game for the next, 2.5 weeks as we get closer to the game is keeping guys healthy, making sure, you have depth at positions where you need it, especially like the cornerback room, for example, which has been pretty banged up. So would you, along with that, what would you say are some of the other concerns with the coaching staff, particularly as you start getting more game ready?
I think that coaches identify issues that they have shortcomings at right now. Like Kevin Wilson's not happy with the short yardage offense, which was kind of a Achilles heel for us last year. We were able to, move the ball, score a lot of points, but when we needed short yardage, we couldn't get a push. And sometimes I think that might be a skill thing with the interior players. Sometimes I think it's a numbers thing where you can't always just run up the A gap just because you're trying to be tough. Because if they have too many guys in the box, then the play's not going to be successful, regardless of how good of a push the five linemen and the tight end get. So it's always kind of a numbers game. I've been a big fan of watching guys like Aaron Rodgers. When the box is overloaded on 3rd and 1, they'll look out to Devontae Adams and just throw him the ball, because he'll probably win because he's going to be wound up out there. So if CJ Stroud does that with Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm fine with it. People think that that's soft and that's finesse football, but that's just not. I think it's just a numbers game, and it's a better matchup when you have skill guys like that. But I think you just kind of figure out where you're at as a unit, offensively and defensively, and there's certain things. Coaches are never satisfied, and I'm sure after the scrimmage, there's things they want to get better at.
Right, absolutely. So would you say that, for the players, obviously training camp is horrible, it's miserable, it's a nonstop grind. For the coaches too, they're oftentimes staying later than the players. How would you, when you were coaching, how would you try to manage all that?
I think honestly, coaching might be actually harder than being a player. I mean, being a player physically is tough just because you get beat up, every day for 2.5 hours. But now you don't even have 2 days anymore. So when you're a coach, like for instance, when the players got done with the scrimmage, they got some time to rest. They had some lunch, some time to rest, and then in the afternoon they started doing workouts. Like when you're a coach after the scrimmage, you go right to grading the scrimmage. So you get done with a 3-hour scrimmage, then you got to grade the scrimmage, which takes 2.5 hours. It almost takes just as long because you're rewatching every single play and you're rewinding each play multiple times. I mean, grading a scrimmage takes forever because it's 3 groups and it's usually 140 plays or so, and it just takes a long time. So you got to make the grade sheets, you got to tabulate the scores. Then you got to script the walkthrough, which takes forever because they do a walkthrough every day. So it's kind of like they have. If you're a coach, it's still kind of like you have 2 days. You have to script it. If you're a grad assistant, you have to draw scout team cards. I mean, it's a lot of work, a lot of late hours, and when you're lower on the totem pole, like if you're a graduate assistant, you kind of are at the mercy of people getting their work done, so you can get your work done. So like if someone's scripting offensive run, inside run, or they're scripting stuff versus the scout team, you can't really start doing your work until the offensive coordinator is done with that, or the offensive line coach is done with that, or whatever. So it's always kind of a thing where you try to get as much done as you can beforehand, but it's a game where, man, it's a lot of late hours and it's tough, and people can't wait for camp to be over so that they can actually get a decent amount of sleep at night.
Right. So from what I remember, they got rid of 2-a-days the NCAA did after 2017 or during 2017. How do you think that has changed the way teams have to attack and plan for camp now that you can only have one practice a day?
Well, I think it's harder because I think that one practice is just, it's kind of like a morphing of 2 practices. So it's got to be harder. I feel like they have just as many practices as they did before, but it's just spread out over a longer period. So I don't know if that's necessarily better. When I was in the NFL, I hated 1-a-days. Actually, I didn't like 2-a-days, but 2-a-days were actually a little more manageable than 1-a-days because with a 2-a-day, we generally would get one of the practices would be in shells, one would be in full pads, and we'd get a longer break in between practices. You get like 3 hours, so you can go get like a legit nap in, and you eat as fast as you can, go back to your hotel or dorm or whatever, sleep for 2 hours, and then head back to the locker room, get dressed for the next practice. But like on the 1-a-day, you get a much shorter rest. You might get like a 90-minute nap or so, which doesn't it doesn't seem like a lot because it really isn't. But it's one of those things where you almost wish that you could have the 2 days because like that the longer nap was crucial during camp. And the hard part about 1-a-days is it's like they make it sounds better because it's one practice, but you have more meetings. You usually have a lift. They find stuff for you to do. Like it's like they just find busy work to occupy your time because even with one practice a day, they still go home at the same time. They still go home at 9:30 at night, and it's a long, miserable day. So it's still a grind, and it's still something where you just got to try to stay sharp the whole time.
Right. So when you were playing, offensive lineman, defensive lineman, in my opinion, have always had it really, really, really rough during camp. About, when did you really start to notice that your body was kind of starting to get acclimated to, being, in the conditions of a football, season?
I don't know if it ever really does. It's something where I always felt terrible after about the first couple days, and you never really get a chance to like fully heal, so you're always kind of in that miserable state of soreness and aching, and you're going to pick up some injuries. You're going to sprain an ankle or sprain your knee or your shoulder, or there's always going to be something messed up during the football season. And by this point in camp, everybody feels like garbage, so you just got to kind of tell yourself, hey, this is you just gotta suck it up and figure it out, and ice, and hit the ice tub as much as possible. The cold plunge, sauna, like whatever your body needs to keep it as premium as you can do. You got to do it. I mean, they have massages. I mean, they've got the resources now are. I mean, they were good when I was there, but they're way better now. I mean, they have better diets. They have better massage stuff. They have better cold plunge. I mean, it's like everything's better. And again, that's just how football, college football is now, with the amount of money they spend on the facilities and all the little things they can get. But I think it's just, you got to take care of your body, and it's hard because a lot of guys never had to do that in high school just because they're so resilient, they're so young. But as these seasons get longer and longer, and these they're adding games to the playoffs, and the teams are going to be getting harder and more physical because we're going to have an expanded Big Ten with USC and UCLA. Like, taking care of your body is going to really be at a premium, because you're not going to have as many Akrons and Arkansas States on the schedule anymore, where you really don't have to play half a game. I mean, you're going to be playing like full games now, like an NFL season, and it's tough. I mean, it is a straight grind, and the teams that take the best care of their players are going to be the teams that are going to be successful.
Right, and I know the other day's practice finished with what they would call a recovery workout. What does that do for team morale after you've been going hard for 10 days or whatever it is?
Well, it's like if guys are beat up, that usually means that they're going to bring in masseuses. It means that they're going to be doing like foam rollers and, cold plunges, like stuff that's not, hard and painful. After a scrimmage, the last thing you probably want to do is go lift and squat and do stuff when your body's all banged up. So it's, I think it's really advantageous for the players to take care of themselves. And Mickey kind of threw him a bone after a long, tough week and said, hey, it's almost like a football version of a spa day, where it's like, hey, you can treat yourself, take care of your body, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, I gotta imagine for those guys, it is just the best feeling in the world when you hear that news. So, I want to hear one of your all-time favorite camp stories that you experienced as a player.
I was in '07. I was really excited because I knew I had a really good shot at being a captain. It was there really weren't any other seniors. I mean, that had the credentials that I did, in terms of I started for 4 years. I'd been all Big Ten. I mean, we lost a ton of leadership. We lost Troy Smith, Anthony Gonzalez, Pittman, Ted Ginn. Those guys all went pro. TJ Downing, a bunch of guys that were my teammates and buddies. I was kind of like the last remaining guy that played on the '04 team, and I was still there in '07. And I remember after the Jersey scrimmage, which was a big scrimmage for us, we announced the captains, and it was I remember it was something, because I didn't know who the defensive captains were. I mean, they ended up making James, who was a junior captain, and there weren't many junior captains back then. Now they kind of hand captaincies out like they're just nothing. They've had 13 captains in a year, which is kind of silly, but it was an honor, and it was something I was excited about, because it's a tall task. I mean, we were a team that was picked third in the Big Ten, and we came off getting just humiliated by Florida, and it was like it was a significant year for the direction of the program. We were a young team. We only had about 10 seniors on the team, and not many of them played. We had a lot of walk-on seniors, so there were about 3 of us that actually played, and we were kind of a team that was a year away, but we really wanted to fight and show our grit and be tough. And, we ended up being first in the nation in total defense. We beat Michigan, won the Big Ten outright. So it was a good year. We lost in the title game, which sucked. But, for a team that was kind of an underdog all year, it was a good feeling to overachieve. I guess, it's probably the best mark you can put on an outfit, is if they say that you guys overachieved, because you don't want to be an underachiever. But we really didn't have the talent to do what we did, but we were able to muscle up and do it. So I was real proud of that. That was a good day from camp, and we won the Jersey scrimmage. I was named a captain, so that was a good day.
That's got to be unreal. Well, Kirk, Thank you so much for the insight. Absolutely love hearing about all that stuff. And with that, we say thank you to all the listeners. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for the next edition. Thank you so much.